Geoffrey de Vinsauf wrote a poem in Latin called Poetry in Nova, probably between 1199 and 1216. Sic res habet fundare domum non currit ad actum impetuosa manus intrinsica linea cordis primiter opus syricum sub ordine certo inferior prescribit homo totamque figurat ante manus cordis quam corporis et status aegis est prius archetypus quam sensilis ipsa perisis spectet in hoc speculo quae lexit danda peritus. Lines 43 to 49, which I've translated as: if anyone is to lay the house foundations, he doesn't act with impetuous hand. The intrinsic lines of the heart measure out the work. The inner man determines the stages ahead and in a certain order. The whole is figured forth by the hearts before the body's hands, and they form the archimodel first before the senses. Poetry itself looks into this mirror to see the given laws for poets. So it's a very Platonic view of rhetoric and of poetry, which doubles everything, but it doubles it using the Latin roots edificio, connecting edifice to edify, and that's the beginning really of this kind of architectural metaphor for writing, which is effectively house building, in which you have the plan for the house and then you create the house. So the not impetuous hand, impetuosa manus, of the house builder becomes the interior manus cordis, the heart's hand. The exterior foundations become the prior intrinsica linea cordis, the intrinsic lines of the heart. That the interior is already actualized as a bodily metaphor to match the exterior is a doubling pun on this dual creation. Before the body's hand, the heart's hand. Ante manus cordis quam corporis. Cordis and corporis, in fact, both sharing the same instance of manus. This mixed interior and exterior is then doubled again in the mirror in hoc speculo of the last line of this excerpt. The interior model, the Platonic archetypus or archimodel, which precedes the building, reflects the laws of poets. These laws are a substance which precedes poetry's actualization, just as the whole of Poetry in Nova is a mirror to itself as it explicates the laws of writing while also embodying them.
That's something that I wrote about and for people that you may recognize. If all the world was paper and all the sea was ink, if all the trees were bread and cheese, what would we have to drink? It's enough to have a man like me scratch his head and think. My birthplace is called Helliland. I could leave Helliland. I will leave. You must understand that it is absolutely impossible to leave Helliland by looking forward. There is no prospect here, but I can walk backwards. If I was to look in front of me, I would turn into dust. See so, scarra down, which is the way to London town. 1 foot up and the other foot down, that is the way to London town. My name is Supro. I come from a dark land where, I don't know where, a land with a lot of ground and very little sky. But the soil is sterile and the rain rather acidic. I like to believe this land has lost its name. My walk has been awkward and easy all the way. Any extra mile took me weeks on end. Then I arrived to a stretch of water. I gave the coins I picked up along the track. There are always coins cascading down. I had to give them all, but there was a queue. I had to wait. It could have been years. Here am I, little jumping Joan. When nobody's with me, I'm all alone. When you leave Helliland, you develop an illness. It's called the malady of credulity. It goes to the bones. Intermititit situl, iradira dominu, oker poker dominoker, out goes you. Then I crossed the water. Do ditch your imagination here, without regret, without retrieve. Do give it up. Do not enter here, you who has not been exploited to the point of incredulity. Your body is welcome, not your imagination. You have to sign a form titled Justify Your Existence, Terms and Conditions, and a disclaimer and all. Awake, arise, pull out your eyes, and hear what time of the day. And when you have done, pull out your tongue and see what you can say. Where do you come from? Yes, and where do you live, and what is your postcode, and what do your parents do, and do you have a profile online, and where do you come from? I come from nowhere. That's impossible. Everybody is born somewhere. Nowhere exists. It even has a middle. I come from the Midlands of nowhere, if you want. That's bad word games. So tell me, where do you come from? I told you. Nowhere, everywhere. I've been just about everywhere. Okay, you have roamed the world, so it all. But where were you born? How should I know? I was never told. I was sold from a place to another. By the age I could understand what was said around me, I didn't trust anyone, and they never mentioned any name, just in case. Which language do you speak? Probably 6 or 7. English, Spanish, Chinese, Urdu, Swahili, Russian, Arabic, and Walloon a bit. Oh yes, and where did you learn all these? Where I was born and displaced and sold and bargained for and haggled over, if you get my drift. Okay, where do you go? I go where I can, like water. I'm shapeless, highly adaptable. What drives you? A sense of adventure? Do kid me not. Money? That I understand. Do you understand it's rather expensive around here? I've very little need. So why do you want money then? Because I have big hopes? What has this to do with a sense of adventure? Do I need to be entirely coherent? Well, who does? Yes, so you don't know what you are doing. Do you? How many miles to Babylon? 70. Can I get there by candlelight? Yes, and back again. Here is a beck, and there is a woo. Open your gates, and let us through. Outside, while waiting, the children invent games. There was an old crow, sat upon a clod. That's the end of my song. That's odd.
This is on modular fencing systems. I'm trying to think if the border is a human shape, if this is where the waved isolation of the island is, and there is one part of a series now, a flare is, and to know this is not clean, but the story is of ourselves, not ourselves, but clean how we know. Sound is an arrival, and you will hardly feel, I want to say, unlocked, because nothing comes here but a synonym for profit and the retained, and yes, desire for bodies dancing through a museum, and say that this entire country is a national barrier asset, but this would not be enough because it is a definite series of inhospitable arrivals, an ugly office, a poster on the wall, a stain, then statement and yes, regret, infinite configurations, knowing the heaving back or go home, count on integrated, honestly legislated the rivet. Above the pocket is the sound, something slips below the substance of a system's failure, is an arrival, but falling uncomfortably, taste and fingers my or your eyelids, coming over no resistance here, and from the sun proceeding to the meridian level, and see, undignified now, with the focus on Gary Neville as Eminence Grise, restraints untethered man in helmet follows you in, grow along the seams that regain the baton charges enough to be getting on with. The sound is an arrival, and the farther is at the meridian you will hardly feel it, but proceeding 12 steps below sea, is a city as like London exactly burning, but saline, and if you were to look safely into your taps and cups, there is this silhouette, but not level, and maybe there is only human shape of these bodies, that I cannot love and fuck and, well, advise what is a kissable in the coral. Perhaps we are condemned to only ever speak of London punished, river concreted over to commute, refuge avoided, a name for a certain combination of distance and time, inhospitable to the will for itself, like the redeployable but quieter, closer to the source. If the street outside could be avoided, but there is a fence between the living and the dead that borders my desire, but still I do not say I know, only a taste and an unpleasantness, and afterwards in the waves a flare.
So, I think I've only read this one other time, and I think it was at the Poetry Festival. So, yes. What you should know is the Germans invented gunpowder, but then they recovered with the press. This is called Modern Arson. The first image is, of necessity, violent. Shards of brown bottle stuck in the haunch of a bitch. There are some eyes can eat you. Vulgar, profane, she licks the blood and dirt from her cheeks and forehead, walks in circles. The sullen river sweating fog in a cruel city sky. Howl, la bestia. Listen to me in these oily words. It is the elegance of the beast, the wolf, snarling satanic pride, then ridicule, attract the young. Ascend over their hearts, the savage and the precious, but beware the quiet dog in still water. And so it was, the sun gone, and darkness reigns. Countless dark bodies besides the sun, buried in silence, and only a trace of a fox's kill on the snow, ominous, if brilliant, obscene excess. The match curves like a snake, insidiously thin. Arson is modern art, a contemporary fetish, the virtual here and now, singular, the usable once and for all, solidly embodied to the timeless, abstract, the general, the multiple, the versatile, the repeatable, the ubiquitous, immaterial, and morphologically fluid mechanisms of operations. Legend says a fox found fire, smuggled from the realm of the flies. That rusty fox, muzzle to the point, instigated a shower of sparks and caused the first inferno. There's a version where man invents fire. Me cago en Dios, me cago en la historia. You should need no interpreter. Once upon a time, a little boy was willing to play his part in the collective building of a cathedral. For the young love themselves, love their self-love, and their love of love itself. In such a world flourishes in vulnerable assurance and natural humility, all shades and tones of vision. The smallest wound or pain is almost holy. You're getting ready to cry with shame and fury. The boy took bundles of keys, and one by one, doors opened. Said fire to the devil, "My lover, don't I make you hot? You've been so blue and gray." Said devil back to fire, "I'm miserable and tired," and the damn ground grew cold as rain. And the chorus sang, "We have sinned and it was a complete failure." And the boy responded, "Perhaps it was the kind of reality I told you about, when I saw the devil paint the door red, using his tail as a brush." And the chorus sang, "There is red paint under your nails." The boy remained silent. His hair was like lint. The chorus sang, "His case is more difficult, nothing known, nothing definite." And the boy responded, "There is an ointment the devil gives me. It turns me into a wolf." And the chorus sang, "So now you defy laws for the sake of foolishness." That evening, he laid out on the table a pistol. Behind a wall of flame and steel, the phoenix died. A single, irreproachable bullet through the head. I feel an arm slip into mine, and the short pencil, if held obliquely, curves like a snake, monstrously fat, and the inferno sparks with a spark. Arson is only one of many aspects of art true to the ideas of youth. Disorderly, bits and pieces, simplistic, demonic, forbidden. The black dog barks all night. Art is a relief from arson, but I have no intention of substitution. It irks me when I asked if I had to give up one or the other. There is no conflict between them, except that they engage. The implication is that arson is not on a level with art, that it is not art. This point has been dead since the invention of fire, in which I have never been interested. Me cago en la historia! And to avoid discussion, I even declared flatly, arson is not art. I made this statement my title to the dismay and reprobation of the beast, the master criminal. And when asked right now if I still hold to my opinion, I declare I have revised myself somewhat. Art is not arson, fire and water, rebellion and bullets.
The Forbidden Room. I like to swim in many fluids. I like to dip in the bog of the great underworld. Blood, milk, sperm, and mud. Every character must take a bath in this stuff. Mother Nature and the timeless power of the gods. The green slime. I wear gold sunglasses made of plastic and dip my feet in the half-deflated kiddie pool. Father comes home in a big white van, his eyes not right, in space and then on top of me, his hands shaking, his arms shaking, his whole body an alien. His large belly falls out of his work shirt. It feels clammy, his heart beating too fast. I don't want him to die. I put my hand inside his mouth and pull out a green blob. The green blob vibrates very fast. It makes a screeching sound. It is very alien. I squeeze it in my hand, back and forth, like an accordion by the seaside. On the road. The parasites live in the womb of a snail, beneath the fresh water. One day, they leave the snail and attach themselves to tadpoles, right where the legs are supposed to go. The frogs develop 3 legs. They hop slower and the birds get 'em. This is very good for the parasites. It is all part of their plan. The birds are where the parasites breed. It is their utopian homeland. But not for long. The bird shits into the fresh water, and the parasites go back to the snail. Bedtime stories. I live in the trailer park with Roland Rat from the old country. Then comes Christmas. I get a gumball machine full of American presidents. When you plop in a coin, you get a card of an American president. Ronald Reagan is president. He is one big burger. We eat endless hamburger helper, flaky noodles, packet sauce, and ground cow. Flaky noodles, packet sauce, and ground cow. I get a small cowboy hat, small plastic cowboy boots, and a real hamburger. Roland Rat becomes Ronald Reagan. Brave New World. I took a paper nap and met Mr. Mustard. He was not a custard. He was a banker in Canary Wharf. There were lots of ships. Ahoy, Mr. Mustard. I wore my jeans. He wore his dicky, 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 dicky. Where is the key? Where is the key, Mr. Mustard? How grows your paper money? I live in Dice Cup, a rag picker. Oma, Oma paye, Oma, Oma paella. The green bird flies under the radar. The grass blows in glistening lumps of bullshit. How is it you spell please? How is it you spell burnt cow? It gets fainter and fainter. I took a paper nap and sold my dance to stomp or stance, to rattle a cage. Mr. Mustard, Mr. Mustard, what is money? Is it numbers or is it papers? The water falls on glistening steel of canary woof. How to take an aching river into your art. To take a ship or to take a shit. Magical changes all over the earth. Find a warm place to sleep. The grass blows on our belly among the doting alligators of Canary Woof.
This is a play, and the background to it is that in March, the conceptual poet and artist Kenneth Goldsmith read Michael Brown's autopsy to a conference, and that caused all sorts of controversy. And as a result, he posted something on his on a Facebook page, and there were a whole load of comments, both in favour of what he did and against what he did on that Facebook page. And basically this play is an appropriation of those comments on that Facebook page. Now it's over 19,000 words long, and to read it would probably take me 4 hours. So this is just to give you a taster really of what it is. And there are 60 actors as well, 60 players I suppose, 60 contributors. So anyway, to Judgment 3. The actor playing Kenneth Goldsmith stands on stage. Some plastic chairs are randomly positioned and a podium stands to stage left. A blank projection screen stands at the back of the stage, dimly lit. The actor playing Kenneth Goldsmith exits once he has spoken, leaving the stage empty. All the other actors are distributed amongst the audience. When they speak, they stand. Once they have spoken, they either sit down immediately or stay standing if the next actor is responding to them. Actors addressing Kenneth Goldsmith speak at or gesture towards the empty stage. Hand claps are made by the actor who has just spoken. Kenneth Goldsmith. Yes, so I should add that Michael Brown was shot dead by police in the States, and obviously there were lots of riots and protests in Ferguson. Kenneth Goldsmith. The body of Michael Brown. In the tradition of my previous book, 7 American Deaths and Disasters, I took a publicly available document from an American tragedy that was witnessed firsthand, in this case by the doctor performing the autopsy, and simply read it. Like 7 American Deaths and Disasters, I did not editorialise, I simply read it without commentary or additional editorialising. Many of you will have heard me read from 7 American Deaths and Disasters. This reading was identical in tone and intention. This, in fact, could have been the 8th American Death and Disaster. The document I read from is powerful. My reading of it was powerful. How could it be otherwise? Such is my long-standing practice of conceptual writing. Like 7 American Deaths and Disasters, the document speaks for itself in ways that an interpretation cannot. It is a horrific American document, but then again it was an horrific American death. I altered the text for poetic effect. I translated into plain English many obscure medical terms that would have stopped the flow of the text. I narrativized it in ways that made the text less didactic and more literary. I indeed stated at the beginning of my reading that this was a poem called The Body of Michael Brown. I never stated I'm going to read the autopsy report of Michael Brown. But then again, this is what I did in 7 Deaths and Disasters. I always massage dry texts to transform them into literature. For that it what they are when I read them. That said, I didn't add or alter a single word or sentiment that did not pre-exist in the original text, for to do so would be to go against my nearly 3 decades practice of conceptual writing, one that states that a writer need not write any new texts, but rather reframe those that already exist in the world to greater effect than any subjective interpretation could lend. Perhaps people feel uncomfortable with my uncreative writing, but for me, This is the writing that is able to tell the truth in the strongest and clearest way possible. Ecce homo, behold the man. Matt Laporte, you're a white person appropriating black suffering for your own personal gain. Spin it however you want, but that's also the truth. Frank J. Miles, I want you to read it to the large portion of America who steadfastly believe he deserved to be murdered. I want you to get in their face. John Liberty, the process of commodifying Black Death, of transforming a medical/political document dealing with Michael Brown's death into an anodyne poetic document that can be presented, published and otherwise exchanged, both symbolically and materially, for personal advantage, doesn't really rely on the existence of a subjective interpretation or not, but on larger social systems. It is the case where a white person does it to a black person, the social system is racism, and the result of the operation of that system is white supremacy. Cheryl Donegan, and accordingly Flaubert's statement, Madame Bovary c'est moi, would be the ultimate in misogyny, as Flaubert, a male, had no right to appropriate female suffering. Frank J. Miles, the only statement is what are white people doing to end black suffering, or you just gutlessly continuing the line of history. John Patinsky, all suffering is human suffering. All expression is human expression. Thank you, Kenneth Goldsmith. Frank J. Miles, we are too late in history for oneness. John Patinsky, that is why you fail. Before trollface.jpg there was Yoda. John Liberty, all suffering is human suffering. All suffering is human suffering, but this statement only ever seems to be deployed when the suffering of people of colour, especially black people, is being minimised, dismissed or exploited by white people. Discursively, it serves as a form of mystification about racism and a statement that white people deploy in order to refuse to acknowledge, account for or change the larger system of racism. Travis MacDonald. The idea that Kenneth Goldsmith is exploiting or enjoying some personal gain or advantage from the act of reading this text seems to be the hinge on which the outrage swings. To assume he profits from the potential book sales seems preposterous for anyone familiar with the scale of small press economies. If you assume his profits are earned in the currency of reputation, then why donate to that fund with your outrage? It seems more logical to me to assume that this act is intended as a protest of sorts against a system that would prefer such public documents to go ignored and unnoticed. As such, it seems to me to be in solidarity with the victims and the collective communities and identities who suffer under that system. going on slightly. I'll read one bit from the middle and then I'll read the end of the thing. So this is from about the middle. Bonnie Jones. I think conceptual poetry is important and I like much of Kenneth Goldsmith's work. For the record, I am a non-white Asian woman. I admit I'm late to the game here and I haven't read the entire thread, got a bit exhausted 80% of the way in. I have to say I'm glad you are all working shit out on this thread and in public. I'm working shit out too and I support that and the messiness it entails. My response to KG's work is probably best articulated by this fantasy stroke dream I keep holding out for, that maybe you very smart, educated and talented, powerful people on this list can help out with. In this dream, the majority of controversial, experimental, avant-garde art stroke literature stroke music stroke performance that comments on stroke critiques, speaks truth or truth, provokes action or otherwise desires to get America's head out of its own arse when it comes to institutionalised racism and oppression, and that is validated financially or with cultural capital by major art institutions, Ivy League universities, festival gigs, grants, academic teaching positions, etc., and is taught in those institutions as canon and fact, and is still considered avant-garde stroke experimental and not lumped in with identity work, and therefore often dismissed for not aligning with the art historical trajectory, is produced by, wait for it, non-white artists. To Jess's question, are there ways that white people can represent racism stroke oppression? Sure, yeah. The truth is white people can do whatever they want. Also see Yam's collective withdrawal from Whitney controversy. In my dream, though, they give space to the voice and radical subjectivity of non-white artists. They give up their seats on the bus. Also in my dream, KG reads an updated version of soliloquy titled Every Minute of My Life, the Day Michael Brown Was Murdered. It could be series, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, and the beat goes on. And a bit for the end. Damon Smith. This thread is still about 1,000 comments light. Elizabeth Cody. Lazy, smug, appallingly offensive, egregiously self-involved, abhorrently narcissistic, unapologetically hurtful, deliberately obtuse, and just plain stupid. Behold the man, I don't think you have it in you. Pontius Pilate likely meant it more authentically than you do. Jim Burl, you are a coward. Corey Lumpenpole, these kind of poets are often the first line in selling soft fascism, and you know what happens to fascists, Kenny. A young woman climbs onto the stage. Young woman. I want to organise a large benefit reading, 100,000 poets strong for the death of Kenneth Goldsmith. We would take donations of weapons, not dollars.
Preface. The yellow fog, the yellow sign, the masked individuals at large in Whitehall, the strange graffiti that adorns the streets, and you're afraid not so much of what it says, but of the implication that it is significant. Hello, I'm T.S. Eliot, and I'm here to talk to you about white dudes. That's from a sequence called 25 Stupid Poems Against Helicopters. 1. Oh, fall over London, you stroppy child generating disasters for attention. I am not able to speak yet and was hoping this would make more sense. 3. You are becoming a zombie. Make sure you become the right kind of zombie. We'll love the system as hard as we can till it breaks. 5. A cold room does not mean bad sex necessarily. Your eyes are catching on my skull. You want to ban everything. You want to legalize everything. The mind is full of things and death. 6. Reinstate inevitability in the Shot City death metal cop. Every day in a cardboard box filled with wasps. 7. So the scene is work now, and we can't be in each other's business like flaming children on a cruise. In the bone of the year it's dark, might as well be a giant bat guilty with riot depths. Clean the meat from your eyes, your brain's marble space creamed into blankness. 8. We have done nothing and too late, but know the officers' names. Summer of wasps, beautiful food in tiny portions, close, uncomforting black clouds of sleep. 10. Everyone pile into London before it closes. I do not want to be in the public realm. Give us more assignments so we do not have to talk to each other, journeying into people with blocked nerves, gentle and hateful, riding a wave of wish fulfillment. The problem is people keep being born and they don't know anything. 11. Beware the temptations of discipline, snow falling out like ethical diamonds drowned in biscuits and legal documents. Get the sadness out of my face, life is temporary, obtrusive, and on its way. 15. In tiny movements inside the snowsuit, writing with raw hands, golden pin, the body can be torn, the camera cannot, to build shining infrastructures for your friends, populated by coloured and exploding birds, to all live only a widescreen life, work like swimming in milk, in background hear pigs eating the meat. 21. No natural break. Make the throat tea clean for speaking, shocked and horrified by everything here. The book is sweating and there is no such thing as silence. Cover my body with box sets, will burn and ruin the world. Rain is a done move, rain is an old deal. 24. Club eyes, can lions, drape body on the roses by the old church, content and longing in the old town. People are not who you thought they were. The hooves bite the ground, the peace of being through the jaw garden and the light glinting off police cars and ferns. The problem with the world is most people don't live in it. 25. Deep fried moths. Less illness, more boredom. If I wasn't a cop, I'd fucking melt.
Aesthetics. Thesis. The value of creative activity consists in its infinite capacity for filling space. I remain attached to objects like you, and you, and you. I'm talking to you now, name. I'm talking to you now, name. I'm talking to you now, name. If you can't break it, or eat it, or shove it up your ass, then it isn't art. Okay? Okay. I'm not the most progressive aesthetician in the room. But then, who is? Employee of the month. I am the unguent. I spit into the mechanism every 30 seconds of a 12-hour shift. I clock on at 8 and resume the labour interrupted the night before. I clock off at 8 and rush to the enveloping bosom of the domestic unit. Should I unwind by rearranging the furniture, or by picking at the scabs on the knees of my dependents? 150 million is my telephone number. Help. It's a epigraph? Epitaph? Which one means I'm dead? The one that doesn't mean I'm dead. And as they say, the incident is closed. Mayakovsky. That's from his suicide note, and he wrote Mayakovsky wrote a poem that was a response to another poet's suicide note, where he Sergei Esenin, where he accused that poet basically of the sort of ultimate bourgeois act of committing suicide. And then he, subsequently committed suicide. And I read his suicide note, and I thought I'd write a response to it. So this is a response to his suicide note. Pardon? Yeah, well, we will see. Who's dead again? I don't know. We will see. I'm throwing down a challenge. If I ever do commit suicide, I expect a counterpoint.
This is like the ring, isn't it?
It is. It's endless. Okay, so 150 million is my telephone number. Help. And, as they say, the incident is closed. Mayakovsky. Your name. Your face on a plate. Your shattered pelvis is not a text, comma, 150 million is my telephone number. Help. Pitch number 167. Working title, Wagner's Ringtone. Cast in order of appearance: Alec Baldwin, Daniel Baldwin, Stephen Baldwin, Billy Baldwin. Exposition: rising action, falling action, resolution. Focus of dramatic tension, narrative momentum versus audience participation. Is this the bit where we jerk off? Is this the bit where we throw up? Is this the bit where we walk out? Is this the bit where we sing along? Capital, capital. Is this glass reflective or transparent? This is an international hub. This is an integrated complex. This is an inflatable skyscraper. In my X-ray specs, I can no longer differentiate between the core and the shell. Art object. If you can read this bumper sticker, line break, then it isn't meant for you, Diane.
Breathe out words and and let them hang, forever supported by hidden machinery, keeping alight the chatter of living. Signal yourself and enter the fray. The white stage floats weightless in a hierarchy of time, a hierarchy of contact. Who knows whose will is whose, when caught only in code, always on, processed and cooled. This action turns static, its durational load, dug from the earth and sent to the sky, a constant exhale that continually flows. And this is a quick one about waking up. I awoke and the dream persisted, like cold hands and the moist air by a thin window, all white grey pulling the warmth from surfaces, blanked and retracted, unable to inhabit. In this dream, the only thing that's real is a firing of synapses, quick flood of red. I want to get there.